You've been taught to chase the light, to think positive, smile wider, and silence the trembling voice that rises from the dark corners of your mind. But no matter how bright you try to burn, the shadows always stretch further. They follow you, not to haunt you, but to remind you of what you've buried. Carl Jung said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." That the doorway, the one hidden beneath your light, the one most people fear to touch. Confidence isn't built by pretending to be fearless. It's born when you stand eye to eye with what terrifies you, and then it can't destroy you. The truth is, your shadow holds the fragments of your power, the instincts, desires, and wounds you've disowned. When you turn toward that darkness, something ancient awakens. You stop performing and start existing. You stop defending your light and start embodying your wholeness. So ask yourself, are you ready to walk through that door, to meet the part of you that's been waiting all along? If you are, comment this: "My darkness is my teacher." Number 2, the mask you wear. We wear masks, carefully painted smiles that hide the trembling chaos underneath. We learn early how to please, how to fit, how to belong. But somewhere between innocence and survival, we mistake the mask for the face. Jung called it the persona, the costume we craft to meet the world's expectations. It polished, impressive, even charming. Yet behind it, your real voice waits, gagged by fear, silenced by years of pretending. The world rewards your mask, but your soul does not. Deep down, it knows that every compliment for your performance feels hollow. Every success built on pretense tastes like ash. There are quiet rebellions stirring inside you, a whisper that says, "This isn't me." That whisper is sacred. It's the murmur of your buried self, the one exiled to protect the mask. True confidence begins when you stop performing and start listening. When you strip off the borrowed faces and dare to meet your own gaze without filters or fear. It's terrifying. Yes, to face the raw, unpolished you. But beneath the discomfort lies something real, an untamed presence, unashamed of its scars, uninterested in perfection. That the self the shadow protects, the one you were before the world told you who to be. Every time you betray that self to keep others comfortable, you feed the mask and starve your soul. But every time you act in truth, no matter how small, the mask cracks a little, light seeps through, and something shifts. The performance ends, and the person begins. So ask yourself, who are you without your masks? Who would you be if you didn't need to be light? If you're ready to peel away the layers, to meet the reflection that doesn't flinch, comment this: "I no longer wear disguises. The shadow waits behind the mask, patient, ancient, and endlessly forgiving. It doesn't want to destroy you. It wants to free you." Number 3, the monster in the mirror. When you finally dare to take off the mask, something unsettling happens. You meet the thing you've been running from, the monster in the mirror. It doesn't look like a creature from nightmares. It looks like you, only stripped of denial. This is the shadow, the part of you that carries everything you reject. Your anger, envy, lust, weakness, shame. The impulses you hide behind politeness. The emotions you swallow so you can appear composed. Society taught you that these are sins to be purged, but Jung knew the opposite. What you repress doesn't disappear. It festers. It becomes the ghost that drives your choices, the silent puppeteer pulling your strings when you least expect it. Every unacknowledged emotion becomes a hidden command. You find yourself repeating patterns, sabotaging peace, chasing validation, and calling in destiny. But the truth is simpler and darker. You've mistaken the monster for the enemy when it's actually the gatekeeper. The shadow is not evil, it's exiled power. It's the strength you were told to suppress, the hunger for life that was labeled too much, the tears you weren't allowed to cry. When you look into the mirror without judgment, you begin to see that this so-called monster is a part of your wholeness. It's the raw material of confidence itself. To deny it is to amputate half your soul. But when you accept it, when you say, "Yes, this too is me," the energy trapped in shame becomes courage. The fear turns to fire. The self you feared becomes your ally. That's why shadow work isn't about purification, it's about integration. The dark doesn't vanish. It becomes sacred fuel. So when you next see that reflection, the tired eyes, the hidden rage, the secret longing, don't look away, hold its gaze, listen, because what you're staring at isn't your downfall, your resurrection waiting to happen. If you understand this truth, comment below: "My shadow is my strength." Number 4, the power beneath fear. Fear is the gatekeeper of transformation. It waits at the threshold between who you are and who you could become. Most people spend their lives retreating from it, building comfortable cages and calling them safety. But the paradox is this: everything you truly want, power, confidence, purpose, peace hides behind the feeding you avoid most. Fear is not the enemy, it's the compass pointing toward your unlived life. Jung taught that the things that terrify us often symbolize the parts of ourselves we haven't yet claimed. What you fear isn't danger, it's expansion. The trembling in your chest is your soul preparing to evolve. The mind screams, run out, but the deeper voice whispers, stay. Stay long enough to listen to what your fear is trying to teach you. Beneath the shaking, there's always a mess. It says, you are stronger than the illusion that binds you. When you run from fear, it multiplies. When you walk into it with awareness, it dissolves. Every confrontation with fear is an initiation, the death of an old identity and the birth of a new one. You begin to realize that courage is not the absence of fear, it's intimacy with it, to walk with fear an ally, not a prison guard. Each time you do, the walls of limitation crumble, and a deeper confidence rises, the kind that isn't loud but steady, the kind that doesn't need to prove itself because it knows its worth in silence. The alchemist spoke of transforming lead into gold. Fear is the lead of the psyche, heavy, dense, and unrefined. But when met with awareness, it becomes gold. Wisdom, clarity, strength. That is the secret most never learn. You don't conquer fear, you integrate it. You let it become the current that fuels your evolution. The bravest souls are not fearless. They are fluent in fear language. They know that every shadow trembling at the edge of their vision holds a fragment of light waiting to be reclaimed. If you're ready to stop running, to face your fear and draw power from it instead of hiding, comment this: I turn fear into fire. Number 5. The wound. The door ed. Every wound tells a sore. The conscious mind refuses to read. You rush to heal, to close, to forget, but the psyche never forgets. It remembers everything, every betrayal, every silence, every moment you pretended not to hurt. Beneath the surface of your polished self lies a map written in scars, each one pointing towards something sacred. The truth of who you are. Jung said there is no coming to consciousness without pain. Pain in its purest form is not punishment, it's revelation. The wound is the place that the unconscious leaks into the visible world, that the invisible finally demands to be seen. Most people try to numb it, cover it, medicate it, but the wise learn to never fear it and listen. Because your pain has language, it speaks through recurring memories, emotional triggers, restless nights, and the ache that won't fade, no matter how much you distract yourself. That ache is not your enemy, it's your soul knocking from the inside, begging to be acknowledged. The moment you stop resisting the wound, something miraculous happens. The pain doesn't vanish, but it transforms. It becomes a teacher, harsh, yes, but infinitely precise. It reveals your lits, your patterns, your illusions of control. It strips away everything false until only the essential remains. That, the alchemy of suffering, when despair becomes initiation, when what broke you becomes what rebuilds you. Better reason myths speak of the hero descending into the underworld. It's not metaphorical fluff, it's psychological truth. The descent is unavoidable. To rise, you must first fall into yourself. Every great awakening begins with an unraveling. Your deepest wound is not your weakness, it's the portal to your power, the crack where the light and the shadow meet. It's where compassion is born, not the soft kind that avoids discomfort, but the fierce compassion that comes from having met your own darkness and survived it. That's what gives your words weight, your presence gravity. People who have suffered consciously carry an aura that cannot be faked. It's the quiet authority of someone who has met the abyss and learned its name. Healing, in the Jungian sense, is not erasing the wound, it's weaving it into the story of the self, transforming pain into meaning. You don't rise in spite of your wounds, you rise through them. So when you feel that familiar ache, don't curse it, sit with it, ask it what it's trying to teach you. And if you understand that your pain is not your prison, but your passage, comment this: my wounds are my doorway. Number 6. The rebirth of the authentic self. There comes a moment in every person's journey when the old self begins to die, not in violence but in silence. You wake up one day and realize the roles you've played no longer fit. The ambitions that once drove you feel hollow. The masks you wore begin to suffocate. You sense an ending, but not yet a beginning. This is the threshold between identities, the sacred chaos of transformation. In Jungian terms, it is the death of the false self, the disintegration of the persona that no longer serves your soul evolution. It feels like loss, but it actually initiation. The self you built to survive must die so the self meant to live could finally emerge. The process is not gentle, it strips you bare, dissolves certainty, and leaves you wandering through a psychic desert. You question everything, your values, your desires, even your sanity. Yet within this dismantling lies a hidden grace. The psyche destroys only what is no longer real. It tears down illusions to reveal the uncorrupted core beneath them. The old ego resists, of course. It clings, bargains, mourns. But every end echoes with the whisper of rebirth. You are not being punished, you are being remade. True rebirth doesn't arrive in thunder. It begins as a flicker, a quiet knowing that rises from the ruins. You start noticing moments of strange calm, as if your soul has been waiting for this collapse. You begin to feel a presence within you, something older than personality, wiser than fear. That is the self, the archetype of wholeness, the divine blueprint within the unconscious. Jung called it the center and circumference of the psyche, the axis around which the conscious and unconscious revolve. When you touch it, even for a second, everything shifts. The search ends. The pretending stops. You were never meant to become something else. You were meant to remember who you already are. This is the true resurrection, where the authentic self rises from the ashes of identity. It doesn't need approval or applause. It doesn't perform. It simply is. It moves through life with quiet strength, because it knows the source of its power lies not in perfection, but in presence. The authentic self is paradox itself, strong yet vulnerable, light yet dark, human yet divine. It embraces the contradictions the ego couldn't tolerate. It doesn't reject the shadow, it integrates it, allowing light and darkness to dance without shame. That is wholeness, not purity, but harmony. When you live from this place, confidence ceases to be an act. It becomes an atmosphere. You stop chasing validation because your worth is no longer negotiable. You stop fearing rejection because you no longer abandon yourself. The world begins to mirror your inner coherence. Opportunities align, relationships deepen, creativity flows effortlessly. But these are side effects, not goals. The real treasure is inner freedom, the ability to stand in your truth without disguise. And so, after the long descent through masks, monsters, fears and wounds, you return, not at who you were, but at who you've always been beneath the noise. Rebirth is not about becoming someone new. It's about coming home to the ancient self that has always waited patiently within your darkness. If you've reached this fate, you've earned your reflection. Comment this: I have been reborn from my own shadow. Number 7. The alchemy of the shadow. Alchemy was never truly about turning lead into gold. That was only the disguise, a language for those who could see beyond symbols. The real alchemists weren't chemists, they were mystics of the soul. Their laboratory was the psyche, their furnace the heart, their gold the awakened self. Jung saw alchemy as the perfect metaphor for psychological transformation, the process of confronting, dissolving and integrating the unconscious until the fragmented soul becomes whole again. And in this sacred work, the shadow is the prima materia, the raw, unrefined substance from which the gold of the self is born. The very qualities you despise, the emotions you repress, the memories you hide, these are the ingredients of your enlightenment. Without them, no real transformation is possible. The shadow is chaos in its purest form, and chaos is the mother of creation. Every myth understands this. Before light there was darkness. Before form there was void. Before you can build, you must be willing to rake. The alchemists gets willingly into that chaos, into the fire that burns away illusion. They do not flee their darkness, they enter it like a temple, because within that darkness lies the secret. Everything you reject returns power when faced with consciousness. The fear you repress becomes courage. The envy you deny becomes inspiration. The anger you hide becomes clarity. The grief you suppress becomes compassion. The shadow does not destroy, it transforms, but only through awareness. Integration begins with honesty. Radical, merciless honesty. You cannot transmute what you refuse to acknowledge. To meet your shadow is to admit, I am not late. I am also the storm that shapes it. The process is uncomfortable because it dismantles your idealized self-image. You begin to see the masks beneath your morality, the hunger beneath your virtue, the wounds beneath your pride. And yet, this confrontation is liberation. When you stop dividing yourself into acceptable and unacceptable parts, you end the civil war within. You become a hidden force, coherent, complete, unstoppable. The energy once wasted on repression returns in vitality, creativity, magnetism. That is the alchemical fire. Awareness transforming shame into strength, fragmentation into unity. To work with the shadow is to participate in divine paradox, to realize that the darkness you feared was never the opposite of light, but its womb. The two are not enemies, they are lovers, eternally entwined. You cannot truly shine without embracing what once obscured you. The stars themselves are born from collapsing darkness. So too is the awakened soul. That's why Jung wrote, in the darkness of the unconscious, God lives. What he meant was that your divinity doesn't reside in perfection. It hides in your contradictions, in the tension between your highest self and your most wounded self. The shadow is the crucible how those opposites fuse into wholeness. And this is the essence of alchemy, the conjunctio oppositorum, the sacred union of opposites, masculine and feminine, order and chaos, spirit and matter, conscious and unconscious. When they merge, the false boundaries dissolve, and the philosopher's stone, the symbol of enlightenment, is born within you. This is not abstract mysticism. You can feel it in your bones when it happens. You walk differently. You speak differently. You no longer apologize for existing. You radiate something ancient, a grounded power that doesn't need to shout. True alchemy is not an escape from darkness, but a romance with it. It is the art of turning wounds into wisdom, shame into sovereignty, fear into fire. Every experience you've labeled as a curse becomes part of the elixir that awakens you. The gold was never outside you. It was sleeping inside your shadow all along, waiting for you to claim it. If you've understood this truth, if you're ready to turn your own darkness into gold, comment this. I am the alchemist of my shadow. Number 8. The mirror of the collective shadow. The shadow doesn't live only within the individual, it breathes through civilization. Jung called it the collective shadow, the vast, unconscious darkness shared by humanity itself. You can feel it in the air, pulsing behind politics, media, culture, and belief. It's the unspoken energy that drives division, the buried guilt of centuries, the fear that binds entire societies in patterns of ignorance and denial. The collective shadow is the sum of everything we, as species, refuse to face. And at the personal shadow, what is denied within the collective doesn't disappear, it erupts. It manifests as war, add prejudice, adds greed, add ecological destruction, as the endless repetition of suffering disguised as progress. Every atrocity begins as an unintegrated shadow. Every tyrant rises from what the collective refuses to see in itself. When individuals deny their own darkness, they project it outward. They call others evil, inferior, or dangerous, unaware that they are describing their own disowned qualities. Nations do the same. Religions too. This is projection on a mass scale, a psychological defense mechanism turned global tragedy. We demonize what reflects our hidden self. Jung warned that the world hangs by a thin thread, and that thread is the psyche of man. He saw that the greatest danger to humanity was not external, but internal, the unrecognized shadow of the collective mind. The wars we fight out there are mirror images of the wars raging within. The first step to healing the world is to heal the unseen within. Every person who dares to do shadow work participates in collective alchemy. By integrating your own darkness, you reduce the total volume of unconsciousness on the planet. It's easy to blame them, the other side, the system. But the system is only an extension of our shared psyche. When you face your anger consciously, the world grows slightly less violent. When you forgive your inner shame, the world becomes a little less cruel. Transformation ripples outward, one soul at a time. This is not poetic idealism, it's psychological fact. The outer world is a projection of the inner one. The collective shadow is cunning. It disguises itself as moral superiority, righteous outrage, even spiritual purity. It tells you that the darkness belongs only to others. It whispers, you are the good one. But every time you divide the world into good and evil, you feed it. You strengthen duality. True moral strength lies in understanding that both light and dark flow through every human being, including you. The moment you really this, compassion awakens. Not the sentimental kind, but the fierce compassion that sees clear, acts justly, and judges no one. To look upon humanity's shadow without hatred is an act of immense courage. This is why shadow work is revolutionary. It dismantles the machinery of unconsciousness from within. The healed individual becomes a quiet force of balance, a mirror that reflects truth without distortion. When enough individuals embody that clarity, the collective begins to shift. Slowly, silently, the dawn after centuries of night. Real change does not come from slogans or revolutions of rage. It comes from consciousness. Every great transformation in history has begun not with crowds, but with individuals who confronted their own darkness and refused to project it. To face the collective shadow is to accept responsibility for the human condition. It to say, the madness of the world is also mine to heal. That doesn't mean you bear the weight of it. It means you refuse to contribute to its unconsciousness. You begin to live, feed a tuning fork for truth. Your presence becomes medicine. And so, when you see chaos in the world, don't only curse the darkness. Ask yourself what part of you it mirrors. Then do the work, because every soul who awakens becomes a spark in the vast night of humanity dream. And one day, when enough sparks rise, even the collective shadow will begin to see itself and remember the light it once forgot. If you feel that truth stirring in you, comment this: I am the mirror of humanity awakening. Number 9. The light within the abyss. There is a moment in every deep descent when you believe you are lost forever. The world above grows silent, and you find yourself wandering through the underworld of your own psyche, where every echo is your own voice, every shadow your own reflection. This is the abyss Jung spoke of, the place where the ego dissolves, and the soul is forced to see itself without disguise. It the realm where light cannot be found outside you, because it must be kindled from within. The abyss is not punishment, it is purification. It strips away the false gods of identity, achievement, and pride, until only essence remains. You cannot fake your way through this darkness. It sees through every illusion. And yet, it is here in this silent depth that the greatest mystery of all reveals itself. The deeper you fall into darkness, the brighter your inner light begins to burn. The light within the abyss is not gentle sunlight, it the flame born of friction, the soul rebellion against despair. It is awareness, raw and unfiltered, that glows precisely as it has known shadow. Jung understood this paradox, that wholeness is achieved not by ascending into purity, but by descending into complexity. The light you carry is not the denial of darkness, it is transformation. The abyss teaches you that illumination isn't something you chase, it's something you become. When you stop running from pain, when you sit within it and breathe, you discover a subtle spark rising from the ruins of what you thought you were. That spark is the self-awakening, the eternal witness that has never been broken. You start to see that the darkness was never your enemy, it was your initiation. The monsters guarding the gates were never demons, they were archetypes, masks of wisdom, demanding your authenticity before allowing passage. The abyss is not hell, it's the womb of rebirth. In myth, even the gods descend before they rise. Persephone meets Hades, Christ enters the tomb, Inanna hangs upon the hook in the underworld. These aren't stories of defeat, they're maps of turn. The descent is not the end of the path, it's the crucible where light learns to endure. To find the light within the abyss is to reclaim sovereignty over your perception. You realize that light and dark are not forces in conflict, but dimensions of consciousness coexisting in eternal dialogue. Every time you meet despair with presence, you reclaim a fragment of your soul. Every time you refuse to abandon yourself in chaos, you expand the space where light can live. You begin to see beauty in brokenness, meaning in loss, serenity in uncertainty. That is the mark of one who has walked through the underworld and returned whole, eyes no longer searching for heaven but carrying it within. This light does not blind, it reveals. It shows you the sacredness of every shadow, the divine intelligence woven into suffering, the quiet perfection of impermanence. It humbles you, yet fills you with awe. You stop needing to control life, because you finally understand that even chaos has purpose. The abyss taught you that destruction and creation are one breath, that endings are beginnings disguised as silence, that darkness, when embraced, becomes the keeper of light. You rise from the depths carrying a flame the world cannot extinguish, not the brittle light of optimism, but the indestructible radiance of truth. You speak differently now, slower, clearer, without the hunger for validation. You act not from fear, but from alignment. You know that confidence is not noise, it's quiet certainty born from surviving your own extinction. You've seen what you are beyond roles, beyond names, beyond the fragile scaffolding of ego, and what you found was eternal. So when you next find yourself in the abyss, remember, you are not falling, you are descending into your own light. Every darkness is an invitation, is silence a threshold. Don't run, don't numb, don't pray for escape, just breathe and burn. If you understand this, if you found your own light in the depths, comment this: I am the light within the abyss. Number 10. Becoming the whole. Wholeness is not perfection. It's not about polishing away your darkness or ascending into unreachable light. Wholeness is the marriage of opposites, the sacred union of your angel and your animal, your wisdom and your wound, your chaos and your calm. It is the realization that you are not meant to choose between your shadow and your light, but to hudo without flinching. Jung taught that true individuation, the birth of the whole self, happens when you stop identifying only with your mask and learn to dance with the darkness behind it. The goal is not to eliminate your contradictions, but to let them coexist in harmony. The storm and the stillness, the sinner and the saint, the fire and the silence. You are all of it, and more, To become whole is to stop dividing yourself into fragments of acceptable and unacceptable. It to reclaim every piece of your lost story and say, this too is Z. It to see that your flaws are not failures, they are fingerprints of your humanity. Confidence when born from wholeness no longer depends on praise or proof. It moves quietly, deeply, without needing permission. When you reach this state, life itself begins to respond differently. Reality bends around authenticity. Synchronicity appear. The world recognizes you as you have recognized yourself. You begin to live the observer and the observed, both actor and witness, both dream and dreamer. The separation dissolves. The light was never separate from the shadow. They were always two faces of the same mystery. You feel it when you breathe, when you speak, when you meet another soul and see your own reflection in their eyes. That recognition, that silent I know you, is consciousness meeting itself. That is the end of the search. Becoming whole is not about rising above your darkness, but walking beside it with grace. It the final integration, the full circle, the completion of the alchemical work. The gold was never outside you. It was hidden in every scar, every heartbreak, every mistake. You don't transcend the human to find the divine, you embody the divine through the human. That the secret Jung left us, that enlightenment is not the flight from darkness but its embrace. So breathe, you've come full circle, you've seen the shadow, met the monster, faced the fear, healed the wound and found the light within the abyss. You are whole, you are home. If you've walked this entire journey with thee, comment this, I have become whole. And if these words awaken something inside you, remember to subscribe and turn on notifications. Your journey into the shadow has only just begun.